Okay, this is the
Wi-Fi here.
meeting of the Dog Park Committee of February 22nd, 2017. As you can see, the looking audience, we're in a different room. First order of business would be to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at them?
Yep.
Anybody notice any errors or omissions?
There is a question mark in, oh boy, how do I'm reading it on my iPad, sorry. 1, 2, at the end of the second paragraph, I think. Immediately after Town of Auburn DPW, comma, question mark, parking considerations.
Yeah, I see that.
So it's just a typo, I think.
It's a typo, yeah.
I will make that correction. I appreciate that.
Okay. That being the only change necessary, would someone move that they be approved?
Move to approve the minutes.
Move we approve the
I second
minutes and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is a unanimous vote. Thank you, Elise. Okay, from last time when we left, we had, as near as I can remember, 6 sites that were still possibilities. Really 5 that were, I guess, stronger possibilities. Per the instructions from the meeting, I went to see the people who were on the former Dog Park Committee, representatives from the town. That's Amy Contois and Matt Benoit for 2 of them, and Julie Jacobson the next day. And asked her questions, hoping to either to eliminate some of those sites or to boil them down. And the first question was, is there anything going on with Julia Bancroft or Mary D. Stone that would affect this project? And she showed me immediately there are already requests for proposals that are being prepared to be sent out. She said that we don't know what people are going to want for those parcels, but they would not be her choice as parcels. She said also that she would like to keep Gleason free from any use until a long-term use for that parcel can be determined, since that's such a large parcel and has some commercial potential in it. So she suggested that we take that off
Okay.
the list. She said the constraints on the cornfield, on the Papa site, getting from the area that's developed to the cornfield would require crossing wetlands. That would be a difficult thing. She agreed that the land itself that have been cornfields for decades is so used to being plowed yearly that the first 2 to 3 months of spring you are into your knees if you try to walk through it. So that makes it very difficult. Lemansky, she asked if there were, I asked her if there were constraints on that. She didn't know of constraints. She did agree with what we had said, that if we took the area used for either for soccer or for youth football, or that the town now leases out to some adult groups for lacrosse, those areas all take place in the area called practice fields. And she said that would be difficult unless we found something to replace those. And I think that's the problem with most of these areas. If you take a ball field, you really have to replace it, because we don't have extra ball fields. We don't have extra room for athletics. So she agreed that wasn't a good spot. We had looked at another area on Lemansky, which is the area immediately as you come in on, it's called Brayman Street, but really is only the road into the parking area. That area has about 15,000 square feet, according to Amy. They had looked at that. That had been high on their consideration until they saw how small it actually was. She tried to, and Matt Benoit tried to look at it with possibility of expanding it somehow, but they never got really much added to it. So it was still quite small. So that leaves us with the tot lot. We know the problems with that are that there are quite a few abutters to it. And that some of the abutters have already expressed disapproval of changing its use. So we get into a similar situation as we did with Upland Street. It still is, according to people who had worked on the previous committee, the town employees, the people from the Animal Control Office and from the Planning Board and from the Engineer's Office, it still has probably the best potential if you didn't have to, I guess, convince the abutters that a dog park is really an asset to a neighborhood rather than some onus on their property. So that still remains. Later, I got a call from Amy. Amy and Julie and the engineer, Bill Coyle, had talked about Lemansky. They talked about the area that's now occupied by the skateboard park. If the skateboard park could be relocated, and it would have to be relocated somewhere, probably on Lemansky, that area could be expanded to include something over 20,000 square feet. Of course, the relocation would be an expense, but the engineer did not think it would be terribly costly.
And do we, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do we know if that expense would be part of the grant or would have to be something that would be
I don't-
covered by the town or the...
I think the town would have to put that on. I
Yeah.
think the grant says that we have to provide the site. The town has to provide a site that it owns. The problem with the skate park is that it was built as a memorial
Right.
to Patrolman Stephen Lucas, who was killed in a cruiser accident. It has a memorial stone in front of it. Unfortunately, I suppose there's a lot of public works. People who use it have colored the memorial stone. So it's not without some problems. I talked with Julie today, and she loves the site, and she said, let us call the police chief. And so we had a conference call with the chief. And Andy said, that would be a fine place for a skate park. And he likes the idea.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, clarification for dog park?
For a dog park, I'm sorry, for a dog park. And he likes the idea of having a dog park near the police station. He said, that's a good idea. We don't want, people out in the wilderness somewhere wandering around with dogs. For some people that's fine, but for others it's not. So he was not opposed to making that change. Again, I think we would have to be very careful to duplicate what there is there now as a memorial
Yeah.
Or
to
move what's there
Patrolman
now.
Lucas. Yeah. I would think because the fencing is in good shape, that could be used, could be relocated. The fenced area of the skate park is 12,000 feet. It's 110 by 120. So, as far as Julie was concerned, and as far as, you know, my asking her those questions, it seemed in her opinion that the two best opportunities that we have are in Boy Street Tot Lot. And we know that that has a butter anxiety, I guess you could phrase it. Some of the abutters do not want it changed. One of the abutters said it's used by a daycare center who brings children down to it every day.
What would be, for that one, I mean, I think that was really big space, but was the plan be to more or less sunset whatever's there and introduce a full dog park for that full space?
I think so, yeah. Everything that's there inside the wall anyways, Jim, which would give you 20,000 or a little more. The advantage of that, a good point about that is it has wonderful shade at one end. They could build parking off the street for enough vehicles to satisfy the needs of a dog park. So the expenses in developing that would not be as high as they would be on a lot of the other areas. I don't know. We had left it that we would come to a decision this week, but because there were two very usable sites, I thought if as a whole committee we had both of those sites still under consideration, would be in better shape.
Is there anything that's made us rule out Pappas?
Yes. Yes. I had talked to Julie the next day on JB, Mary D, and Pappas, and Gleason, and she did not like any of them for various reasons. Pappas has problems with wetlands, and it has problems if you go to what they call the cornfield area, both in the soil and in the number of abutters. That has more abutters than any other site.
That's interesting.
So she was not in favor of that. She was not in favor of Gleason, which she sees as a long-term project for the town in terms of what its use would be. And she would not be in favor of compromising that, particularly the entrance area, as a dog park. We had talked about the need for outreach, and I think we've got to that point anyway. And as chairman, I would say I would take my prerogative and appoint, excuse me, ladies, Nicole, Jackie, and Sarah to be in charge of the outreach. I don't think you need much outreach on the Lemansky one. At least you don't need contacting many abutters.
No,
But if we
we need to
want,
talk to the teenagers who use the park, who use the skate park.
yeah, and they would still use it if we changed its location.
Yeah.
And I think we still want to keep in contact with the police department. I would certainly not want to upset them by moving that if they felt it shouldn't be moved. So I would appoint the three of you as outreach specialists. And
Sounds so nice.
Nicole, do you have that sheet?
No, I gave it back to him.
Oh, you did. That probably was a mistake. We have packets, and we can have them prepared for any site, but we have packets that identify the abutters to any parcel. It identifies the abutters to the tot lot. The tot lot is the gray area in the center, and the area around it is any house that comes within 500 feet. So it's the broadest area, it's not 300. Sometimes abutters are considered within 300 feet of the property line, or sometimes they're considered as 500 feet within 500 feet. So
Can you explain the difference, please?
I don't know why they do that, but they do.
With your wealth of knowledge, can you explain that?
With the wealth of knowledge that I do not have, I know that the Boyce Street tot lot has 55 abutters within 300 feet of the property and 93 abutters within 500 feet of the tot lot property, which strangely enough is almost exactly the same as the golf course property, Upland Street property, which had 51 and 93.
That is ironic.
Not the worst. Baptist Cornfields, for example, have 108 within 300 feet and 249 within 500 feet.
What are the numbers for Lemansky?
For Lemansky numbers are 43 and 74. So there's 43 within 300 feet. One of the advantages of Lemansky is that the parcel we're looking at has a large earthen hill, I guess you'd call it. I think it's probably man-made and a leftover from the clearing of that park, but it blocks out most of the houses on Wrathel Street.
So what section of Lemansky is that on?
That's that big hill at the top, like when you're coming in to Rocket Land. When you're coming in, it's right there on the right. It's right above. So if you're at the track, you can see it.
Yeah.
If
So is
you
that
actually,
open land right now, or is that land that's
you
going to
can
have
hand my
to be?
phone down. I have the map up. It's the street. It's the satellite view. You can hand it
Okay.
over.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can see the track, the running track.
Yeah,
The land that we first considered would be the land to,
But that would be a great place to move the skate park to.
yes, that's what the engineer
Yeah.
thought that would.
Say that
Kids
again?
that use the skate
You know
park
where
certainly aren't gonna have
Lemansky,
trouble.
where we're considered
Getting
the dog
to that.
park.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know that little
Whereas
round area that's up on the hill.
all right, so I'm seeing.
75-year-old
Yes,
woman
where exactly is it?
leading two dogs. might have trouble.
Well, the nice part about Lemansky too is that the parking lot's already there. The parking lot's there, the playground's there, the tennis courts are there. It's like it's a family area. Yeah.
Family area already, it has water available
Yeah.
to you.
Yes.
It's got electricity available to you.
We're looking at the dog park, exactly the area that's behind it.
And there's parking already, so we don't have to build
You
parking.
go into.
Because the road to come in, it comes in.
Right, right. So we're talking about that little hill that's right when you first come in.
So,
Nice little meadow, but then there's a little hill, and it's right up on the top.
that's for Nicole.
Go down a little.
Was the first one here.
Like the store.
I dumped the outreach
It's right in
on
the-
her, but I said you other two would be.
Yeah, that's definitely
with her.
something I'd like to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you guys
Up
would
on the
be
hill,
good.
there's a nice flat spot that you can
Yeah.
see full traffic. Or you can walk out
I would be, so I'm counting on you three.
to there and have the dog.
The other thing that I have for us to do, that we said we'd begin working on, is the cost estimates. And I would assign to that the other three members of the committee, Elise, Jim, and Howard. I have for you, should I give you that sheet, Elise? Elise came first, so she... The town engineer and his assistant gave us a sheet that has most of the common costs that would be necessary for developing the dog park. It's got cost per foot of fencing, it's got different types of sods, whatever would be used. And they would be willing to work with the people working on the costs from our committee. They have already communicated that to Julie, Bill Coyle, the engineer, and Ms. Paquin, his assistant, would be willing to do that. So, if that is acceptable to you guys, we can start that. I think down the road, we probably still need a public meeting when maybe we have finalized one site, or at least have an idea of what the cost and the appearance of the dog park would be. I think maybe that would put to rest some of the objections from the abutters, at least hopefully it would.
I would agree. I mean, you definitely need the cost analysis available if you're going to have a public meeting.
Oh, yeah.
You're just going to go around the circle.
Absolutely.
We know, though, that the town's share will be not large, that the cost for the whole project will be borne by Stanton's in its entirety, we hope, or at least in the majority of the cost.
However, I can already hear the words echoing of, we do not want our tax dollars to go towards a dog park, and/or we do not want our tax rate to increase because of a dog park.
Yeah. So outreachers,
I mean, I get that comment, but I think there's just education and awareness. When you look at the annual maintenance cost of what this costs, I mean, there are 99.9% that anything other things are going to raise taxes long before a dog park is going to show up in your tax bill.
I completely get it.
It's just the education piece of just having the data points that support what we're doing. So I just to take one step back. So we are we? I don't know, because we haven't made a motion yet. So I want to make sure I'm understanding. Are we saying that our preferred number one location is Lemansky? And
well, we haven't said that, but you guys can say that. I don't think I've said
I'm
that.
sensing that's what we're saying. That's what
Yeah,
It seems like the one with the least amount of, it doesn't
Okay.
seem like any pushback.
The other advantage to both of those is they're both presently maintained by our Parks Department, so it's
Oh,
not.
I mean, to me personally, I think Lemansky or, I mean, I would maybe want to push a little bit more package truck, but I think those are the best locations because there's structures that exist. People are taking their animals there now and have them for as long as
I went to the skate park when I first got my dog because my fear was that he was going to run away, and it was the only place I could close the gate. So I used to go with Willow, mom, and I used to go there in the very beginning. So it is a good location.
Okay, so in terms of what are the remaining roadblocks that we think keeps us from closing the deal on Lemansky? I heard, the police chief, the second round with him, right? I mean, does the person that, the proman that passed away, does he have family members in the
He
area?
has family members, or he did have family members in town. He
I mean,
was
I
an
don't know
Auburn
how
High
old this
graduate.
memorial is. Is it 2 years? 20,
No, it's
30?
quite,
It's quite a...
I doubt that there are any, or certainly not many, members of the current force that served with him.
I feel like that would be an accurate statement. I mean, this was a long time ago.
But I think you're right. I think we need to keep in contact with them.
Yes.
And we need to see, certainly, we don't want to alienate the department.
And
I think we would want to take their opinion, and if we were going to relocate it, what it should look like as it's relocated.
Right.
And again, yeah, if he does have family in the area, we should keep them in mind and speak to them as well.
He did at the time. He was, as I say, he was an
Yeah.
Auburn High
But
student.
I don't know if there still is family, but we should.
Well, I mean, as far as like the people that skate there, I mean, how are we going to get their opinion? Are we just just gonna wait by the skateboards and let people come? I mean,
I'm not going to do that, I'm too old.
I don't mind, honestly, I don't mind canvassing, so I would go down to the park a couple times, and keep an eye out for teenagers and families in the area. I honestly don't mind. It's a nice week, people are gonna be there anyway.
Yeah, that,
Weather's really
Yeah.
nice,
That's true.
I mean,
and on vacation.
So I can always check in with some of the kids that I know, our skaters, and I can kind of just see how often they go in and skate.
so are those the two potential roadblocks that we're seeing? Is there anything else that's off the list, that's not on the list there? So I'm hearing
No.
further confirmation, validation with the police department that they're on board and would support a plan of moving the memorial to whatever area we're going to suggest. Part two is just to get some community, I mean, I think we're very clear on where we want to move this, that we have like approval to where to move the skate park, so if we're going off and asking these folks, you know.
yes, it would be moved to Lemansky. It would be moved, I think, the favored location would be that.
That hill,
location,
right?
Yeah.
The
that-
hill that we
to
were
the other
looking
side
at
of the
as a
track,
park
right?
that's too small for us.
Yes.
All right, so let me play devil's advocate, right? So the positive outcome is the police department says we support it. Whatever the representation of the skater community says we support it, we're good to go, move forward with cost analysis, and then we're gelling, right? We talked to five skaters say, you know what, we like this right where it is, this is our whole life, whatever. How are we playing that card? I mean, I just think we should kind of,
I think that's up to the Board of Selectmen,
Yeah.
if that was something that we,
Yeah,
if we just
Yeah.
suggested the site, they would have all the information, and it would kind of be their decision whether or not to go forward with it.
you might want to, in the future, 2 or 3 meetings from now, invite them in.
Yep.
Yeah, let them come in and tell us why
Yep.
they would not like moves. I was so pleased with the chief's, I wouldn't say decision, but support of this, and his saying that he thought that proximity to the police station would be an asset for a dog.
oh, I think that part.
They have a canine unit that's awesome.
So, and I think that's the bigger one to get over. I mean, I think if you tell a group of kids that we're going to move it over here and it's just going to be as good as where it is, and it's not necessarily moving it 17 blocks from where they're going already.
right.
I can't imagine the impact's going to be all that great type of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, the only
Right.
the only thing I'd want to know before we talk to them is how long it's going to take and when we do it. If it's going to take all summer, that might be, a hindrance to them if they want to, But if it's only going to take a couple weeks.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
think, from what I heard through the engineer, that the time of actual construction would be less than the planning and decision-making time, so that
Okay.
it wouldn't be.
Is that a highly utilized space currently?
I've seen kids use it almost every time I go there.
Yeah.
Almost every time I go
There's
down
a couple
there.
kids always there.
Yeah.
There's always a couple kids there.
Okay.
I think also when when we go down to talk to the kids, but I might also talk to the families who use the playground as well, see how they feel about having dogs in there, even if they're on leash the whole time they're in the parking lot. Just make sure that how families feel, because the playground is used quite often as well.
Yeah.
I hear the sentiment behind your thought process of outreach to families. But I worry that may produce perhaps more opposition
I get you.
than we may want.
I get you.
Certainly, knowledge is power.
Right.
And we want to know what future roadblocks may exist. But having said that, do we want to seek out issues that may not exist?
Well, it's one thing if we were to choose the area behind the tennis courts where we know they would be crossing paths. In this situation, if we went with that area, they wouldn't even.
They wouldn't be crossing paths.
They wouldn't make. They'd be 100 yards away
Right.
more.
Right.
So I agree. I mean,
I mean, personally, the big one is the police.
Most definitely.
We're not advocating removal of the
Of anything.
capabilities that they have. We're not advocating change of location.
right.
We're moving it to this side of the park versus that
Versus the side of the park,
Yeah,
right.
so,
I think that's an awesome idea.
I mean, I agree with you saying, it's kind of like, if it was really, more of a stir up the hornet's nest, is it worth going down that road? I don't know if we want to vote on that or whatnot, but
I mean, when we look at the numbers, I'm sorry, Jim. When we look at the numbers of abutters, I just go, do we really want to exponentially increase folks who may potentially have opposition?
well, I think anyway, I mean, there's probably a good chance that the people that are there all the time are the ones that are abutting the place anyway.
Valid point.
I mean, I live up on Prospect Hill. My kids aren't running down there to go ahead and use that thing, so, that area just because of, proximity. So I would think that most likely there's a high probability that whoever's there is kids that are within walking distance of that place, unless they're there because of some sort of they have a sibling that is involved in an activity, whether it's football or soccer or whatnot, and they show up and they're using those facilities to hang out until the time passes.
Right.
I used to live in an area where we didn't have a yard, and that was the closest playground. We weren't abutting, but it was the closest playground to take the kid to. So it's not necessarily butters, but people without yards.
So, I mean, if we're good with that, then I would say, the action item in here is who's going to go talk to the chief next? What type of final validation do we need for him? I mean, maybe get his thoughts on contacting family members there. And then that to me is, you get past that roadblock, then we're full-blown into community outreach and cost analysis.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Or wouldn't the police chief engagement piece be a subtask under the community outreach subcommittee?
I would send them because
I would do it first, just because you just want to, that's not good. You don't want to start sending out, to the abutters, hey, guess what? And then all of a sudden someone come out of the woodwork and say, we can't move that because of
Blah, 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 right,
type of stuff.
A point of clarification.
I would tell you what I would recommend rather than that, since the chief has already given his support. I would ask for the president of the Patrolmen's Association. And you would then have the opinion of the officers as well as the chief.
And I like that idea.
I think
I
that's
guess the question, and
fabulous.
then one further question, do we need that documented? I mean, do we need them just to write it,
No.
3 or 4,
No,
paper?
I think that, they'll be perfectly upfront and honest with you, I think.
My sense would be, as if there was any opposition, that they would engage with town administration immediately.
Yeah.
And given that there was a conference call, Mr. Chairman, between police chief, town manager, and yourself, that finishes that communication
All
loop.
right, well, I mean, I wasn't on the call, and if the chairman is saying he was on the call, and he heard the police chief give his support, to moving that. We don't think there's any other roadblocks, and, what I'm hearing is we've selected a site. I mean, if we're reverse engineering into it, that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think we should keep working on the 2 sites, at least for a week or 2, in case some catastrophe happens.
Okay,
Keep moving.
so then going on that note, what are the obstacles? Are there any other, obstacles outside of, having to deal with, community outreach as a necessary step? Is there any other kind of gotchas with respect to that space that we need to
I don't think so, because we're not taking sports teams
Away from that
areas.
space. Yeah.
We're not interfering with youth football or softball or lacrosse, which sometimes uses the other area at Lemansky.
Just a general question, what's in that space? What do they have, just some sort of climbing type stuff that's in there? today? Is that?
In the skating area?
No, the Boy Street.
The Boy Street, there are two dinosaurs, two plastic dinosaurs that kids can climb on. And I think if they're big enough, they'll rock back and
What do you mean
forth.
kids can climb on them?
Isn't there some sort of playground area
Yes,
behind the school there?
There is not, that's not Julie Bancroft. This is the tot lot. There are the two dinosaurs. There's a very large sandbox.
Well, I know that, but Julie Bancroft's like right on the next street over from there.
Franklin Park.
Yeah, I would hope that they can move any of the stuff that's still usable to one of the,
That to me is like, all right, somebody's saying, well, there's a daycare that's using that, okay, well.
Well, if we move the stuff,
You're not walking 75 miles away to get to the other playground area type of thing.
Do we even know if that's true?
Do we think there's enough, now, how much square footage is that lot? Do we think that's enough space? Because that was my first inclination when I saw it was, I thought it was small. And I thought the parking on that street might be a little challenging because it's not a very wide street.
I think it is. I think they would have to come on that little stub that they have going into the site. And
almost what, like, if you're looking at it this way, and the street to the left of that lot is there, kind of cut in a little bit of that land and like kind of put,
Right.
stack parking there, 7 cars, something like that.
I think you could get probably 12 or 13 cars in there.
But going just one step further, then what's the space difference between the two sites? And the reason why I'm asking, I'm going down the road is, large versus small dogs, right? Because my sense is if the Boy Street, we're probably only looking at one park for all. I don't think it didn't look big enough to me to
Look
kind
big
of.
enough to make two.
They had figured, and I don't know where they got this, the town's committee that looked at that and measured it said there'd be 44,000 square feet in the tot lot. I think you probably get 25 if you're lucky on the Lemansky.
So 25 Lemansky, and the town approximated 44,000 for Voice Street. I'm not seeing that. Okay, I'm visualizing, but I'm not seeing 44,000 square feet. Is anyone else?
That's.
The only reason I see it is that I saw a measurement in one of the charts they gave us that said it's an acre point. I don't know how many tenths, but it was more than an acre. Now, some of it is not usable for the dog lot.
Oh,
But
right,
if it's 1.3 acres or 1.5 acres, you might get 40,000 square feet up there. At least the town committee thought that depending on how you laid it out, you could get 44,000.
Because definitely, I don't know if we as a committee have the belief that the delineation between large dog and small dog is critical. I mean, that's my opinion, but
No,
I don't know if that's consensus.
I don't think we've nailed that as a must-have requirement. I'm just throwing out there as we're getting down to kind of like brass taxes on things.
Right.
That's something that, that obviously could sway you into picking one over the other.
Almost definitely. I'm agreeing.
Would the potential where the skate park is, would the future dog park be larger than what is currently just the skate park? 'Cause
Yes.
It seems like there's a
There's
bit of
a
shade
lot.
and din, so
Right.
So there, I just want to make sure,
that number.
you're saying that the Boy Street, we think that they're saying is an acre?
It doesn't seem
Oh my
like
God, I mean, I have 2.5 acres and my property looks like it's 3 times the size of that.
Yeah.
I don't know, I maybe just something just to maybe make sure we're looking at apples to apples.
To Jim. If you see the gray area compared with the house lots that abut it,
I guess the question is, I mean, is there any wooded area that's part of there?
That's
yes.
all of that wooded area
so
is
that's
part of
must be
it.
what it was.
All of that. So that's why it looks so small. 'Cause you're looking at it and you're going, oh, it ends at the woods. But
Right.
it doesn't end at the woods. It goes.
Well, I didn't go climbing any mountains
Yeah, none
to
of
look
us
at
did.
this plant.
No. I mean, all of us probably just did the same thing, but now, I mean, that's the only thing that would make sense in terms of how it would be bigger than what it actually looks like, is as if it's going into a wooded area type of stuff. Yeah,
And it is. I would say that probably 1/3 of it is mature oaks.
oh, so it's not exactly easy to move and to get out of there.
Well, that's all on one end. That's on Wellman Street, end of it. In fact, the area on the other end, they took a huge oak out of it, and as you can see, the huge stump that they left for it.
I feel like just the other issue with regards to the Boyd Street parcel that we briefly touched on is that wall and the staircase. I wonder if, I'm not an engineer, don't want to be, if those are structurally sound, and what if any construction costs we would incur to
That was me.
to ensure safety.
So to piggyback on that point, right, is there any evidence that the engineer, is it Coyle, that would go out there and basically kind of do a once-over of the site? Does that make sense at this point? It's just another piece of the puzzle is to say, hey, can you go out to these two sites now and give us pros and cons based on what you're seeing? Because then that would then take in what you're saying with respect to, maybe we give them a little crib sheet of saying, here's this 10, 12 things we're going to need you to just kind of take into account and kind of give us your assessment on it.
That would be our subcommittee, I'm thinking.
Yeah, and he would probably give you square footage
We talk
because...
the subcommittee is community outreach, and
Cost analysis.
what I'm suggesting is we got two sites, and we don't know what we don't know because we're not experts, and I'm assuming none of us are like civil engineers. I mean, so we're assuming things, or we could be missing things that we don't see. I just think, if we got on the phone with them, tomorrow and say, hey, at what point do you think you could go out to these two sites, get back to us on kind of pros and cons, and then, that we could have that as an input into our next meeting. That helps us further refine, because I think, it feels like we're down to two possibilities, okay? There's still some additional refinement in order to kind of, get it to where we want it to be. I don't know, if we still have a meeting next week, I'm thinking that there's probably not, although I have the guys' availability, we should be able to kind of get the answers pretty quickly to what we want. And then at that point, that launches, we get the answers we need or we hope for, and then at one point we launch into cost analysis. I think we should probably do cost analysis for both locations.
Yes.
And we, and do outreach to both locations as well.
Do we agree?
Yes. Yeah, I think we should. I think if we're going to get a fair comparison, we need a cost analysis on both sides. And
we also don't want to just put full throttle into just one site.
No.
Because if something goes wrong, we're not going to have, up to here done on another site, totally available to just go full throttle on that. So I think that's a great idea to do both.
If we look concurrent to your statement about town engineer doing a once-over with criteria.
He may have already done this.
I'm sure that he's done this on Foy Street anyways. He hasn't done it as much on Lemansky because that suggestion that we
Absolutely.
move is so recent.
Right.
But he also came in to talk with the town manager on that site. So, yeah, he's familiar with it, and I'm sure he could get us that information very quickly and would be willing to.
Awesome.
How, and I don't even know that this is something that would be possible to measure, but community impact on these sites. With regards to how many dogs in the town of Auburn? I know, yes, that was a given. I'm going with the data you had collected about peak usage. I'm just wondering if
Well, that goes back to like the fact sheet that we talked about that would be used by the outreach.
yes,
plan.
so that's,
Yep.
you're reading my mind. I was headed in that direction. With the community outreach, I think there needs to be the production of that sheet. So we have it, but we may need two slightly separate sheets.
Right.
Tailored to the specific sites.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go back a step though. We haven't had a vote on whether or not to make these two our final choices.
I vote to make these two our final choices. Move to make these our two final choices.
The only question I would say before we vote is there a distant third in any of this? Do we even have a distant third at this point? I mean, I know we narrowed it down to
Didn't
about
have
5.
anything that made
stood out.
Julie very enthusiastic.
We want her to be enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important that she be
happy.
enthusiastic. She's our most immediate contact with the board.
And I worry, certainly I endorse having contingency, but I worry having contingency gives those in positions of power an out.
I'm not following. Well, I mean, what do you like? Who's the power to us here?
That if we prepared a recommendation for the Board of Selectmen with our cost analysis and our community outreach, and for whatever reason they did not agree, and we had a second tier, I'm wary that they would defer to that, and it may not be as mindfully selected as our sites.
I don't know. I mean, when I look at these two sites, right, the one thing, the abutment, if I was a gambling person, right, which sometimes I like to, play fantasy football.
Thanks for sharing.
Oh, yeah.
Successful.
This to me, yeah, I've won a few championships. This to me has a higher risk associated with it,
Agreed.
just from the fact of it don't look like a big space to begin with, and if you're going to start cutting into that area, and you now got you've got people looking out their windows, and trees are falling, and construction apparatuses are digging and banging and clanking and stuff like that. I just
Don't see it.
well, I
see it, but-
I see the probability being on the lower end
Yeah.
of what it is. I mean, we can certainly still pursue. We can still send out, some feelers, and we could. There could be, 30% of the 2,000 dogs, the town could live in that neighborhood. We don't know. Maybe that, it could be something that's, basically turns it on its head type of stuff. So, even though this is kind of a backup, I just kind of feel it's kind of like it has the potential to be a highly flawed
I agree.
backup plan, just for that reason. And it's almost like, Lemansky is the solution.
Agreed.
And that's why, I'd go back and back to package hog. I'm hearing soil and wetlands, but we're talking apples to apples there, in terms of that middle area, because, I don't get the abutting, challenges there. If, and maybe it's because, like I said, I look at that area that's in the middle that has, different things kind of flowing behind the little playground area that they have right now, I mean, that's like the dead center area of Pappas. So there's already a ball field and other amenities that sit between that area and the butters in that area. So, and we already know there's people that are walking their dogs in there all the time. I mean, I guess, do we not know, I mean, how much analysis do they really do in that area? Do they really know that the soil's there? Do they know exactly the space that we're talking about it? I don't know. I kind of feel like that, you know.
How much would Phil be?
Well, with wetlands.
Oh, you can't even do Phil, right?
Yes.
Right.
I feel like that would be very timely. Not only would it be jumping through hoops, but it would take a long time to get approval.
Oh, I mean, if it's wetlands, it's wetlands, right? That's all I'm saying is, do we know for sure that what the area that we're talking about is indeed wetlands? Because when I looked at, the maps for that area, the wetlands seem to be more off to the back somewhere, not into the middle. So, I mean, if they say that, that the middle of this is absolute wetlands, then to me, no way. I've had to have my little run-ins with the Conservation Commission, so I'm not going there. Again, nothing against them, they got a job to do, but my preference is stay away from the Conservation Commission if you don't have to be there. Yeah, well, maybe they get to do their job. But
So wasn't the bigger issue not where it is, which is not wetlands, but how to get there? So I think it's surrounded
access.
by wetlands, and the problem is even to get from what's already built on to that spot that would be further away, you would have to cross over even a thin parcel of wetlands. I think that was the issue. Am I correct?
If that's the reality, well, you can build a small bridge, a walking bridge that takes you from point A to point B, and they're not necessarily, we're not talking a bridge, at least from the elevations that I see there, that are,
That's huge.
that's, from here to here. I get two bridges that run over, my driveway runs over, and I can guarantee you those are both probably higher than what we're talking about here. I'm just saying that if we're not 100% sure that the area that potentially could be usable there is damaged, then I would say, let's make another phone call. That's all I'm saying. If the phone call comes back and says, sorry, the area you're talking about is exactly the one that we're talking about, and it's damaged and it's got whatever issues, end of story, then I gotta die at that point. But I just think that if there's hope for there, that has a higher degree of hope than what I'm sensing this was going to be at Boy Street. I see that being just high risk.
In no way am I an expert on ADA compliance, but it is my very limited understanding with the information that I read in either the packet or on the foundation website, that the ADA compliance that was required for this would be from parking lot to park.
Yeah, when you said that too, that was my first thought, was there's going to be a lot of
So
people
a
who are
bridge
going to have a hard time getting there.
would, it's my understanding, would not be compliant.
I would say it depends on I would say it depends on the bridge, right? You could have a pathway of asphalt built right off of, a piece of the parking lot, and it could go potentially straight across a bridge onto the other side. Now, again, we don't know the elevations there at all, so, what you're saying could be, but it also could be not,
Also,
type of a thing.
Distance is another thing too, is how far you want to make people walk, especially people, older people who may not be able to walk as far.
But we'll have that same, you can have that at Lemansky too.
There's parking right by the skate park.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a
Yeah,
park.
it's literally like 2 feet away.
So again, depending on exactly where we're talking about, all the questions we're talking about really get answered, right? Because all we're doing is speculating. Is there going to be enough distance between point A and point B? Well, it all depends on where point A actually is.
Right.
So, if somebody who is responsible for that area would love to meet me down there and go down and point out this is where it's at, and we can all kind of agree, okay, here's the area, and then from there, here's the pros and cons. Then, if the cons outweigh the pros, it's no longer a consideration. I still think we pursue Lemansky, but as just a little risk mitigation. I mean, I'm not saying let's go spend 55 hours on this other thing. I'm saying let's make a phone call, let's see if we get someone down there to kind of answer some questions. And then we've done our due diligence and we can make a decision at that point.
Might I suggest a vote on that matter? Sounds
We
like,
have a motion, I think, from Jackie, who moved that we approve
We approved 2 sites.
2 sites.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't, are you talking about the 2, the Lemansky
I
and
was
the
talking
top?
about, yeah.
Is there a second to that?
can you just restate what your motion was so I can write it
But that
down?
doesn't incorporate what you just said with that being the 3rd spot.
Well, I guess the question becomes, right, do we want this to be the second? Is it we feel good about it being the second? I mean, I would say, let's make the motion for the first, for Lemansky, and let's go
That's
back
what I
on
was
that. Let's
I was going to say,
Yep.
let's make the motion
Yep.
that Lemansky's the first.
I would-
I motion that Lemansky's the first.
Yeah, I would suggest in terms of our backup option, I would suggest, let's get a little bit more
Clarity.
data on Pappas by another phone call, maybe just a quick on-site get-together, get that extra data of validation, and then from there we could say, is this our backup versus the backup being package?
Let me go back to what you had me ask the town manager. Were there constraints on Pappas and the cornfields? There were constraints, enough constraints, so that Pappas, the area, the developed area, was eliminated. They were not going to allow you to expand the area already developed. They would consider working on the cornfields, but that now has got the wetland issues. The wetlands are between the developed area, mainly between where, I guess, the lowest part of the developed area is the soccer field and the parking that's beside that. But to get to the cornfields, you would then have to cross what was the wetland area, which takes all the drainage from Betty Street.
Well, but could you stop right there for a second? I just want to make sure I'm trying to visualize where you're going. So you're coming into Pappas, and on the right-hand side is the soccer field. You're saying that the cornfields are behind there somewhere?
I'm saying the cornfields are to the right of that.
Okay, well, this is where we may be talking different areas. So you're saying we come in on the right, over there is the soccer field, but prior to the soccer field on the right, there's an area of whatever we're calling it cornfields, that then
No,
has a parking lot.
further, that would be the parking. The cornfields is even further right. The cornfields are probably, as the crow flies, 200 to 300 yards from the soccer field, to the right of the soccer field,
So it's just-
before you get to the start of the cornfields.
Okay, so if you're looking at the soccer field, you're saying it's kind of, because basically if you walk the perimeter of that soccer field, there's a dip that goes down. You're saying that down there somewhere is this area? Okay,
Beyond that,
okay.
and that's the dip is the
So
drainage area from Betty Street.
So is that?
Feet of
so-
water, feet of water.
Okay, so is that what they're considering wetlands?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so right now, what we've done now is kind of, we're peeling back the layers in here, but that's the area which I was not considering at all, right?
Yeah.
I'm considering the area that's dead in the middle, behind that playground on the left. So when you come in on the left, it's this whole area that sits between the church, one of the baseball fields, and that playground, that whole area in there.
They won't let you in that developed area.
That wasn't land we were given to even consider, was it? I don't think we can even access.
Now I see what you mean.
Rice Road? Is that what you mean?
No, I'm talking about when you come in, you come into the facility.
Off of Bancroft, Rice Road is that development in between, you connect.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking almost the opposite side
The opposite
of
side.
Packagug
Okay.
House. Up by,
Because that was behind Cutting Ave. And so this is the other side. This is where,
This would be to the left of Cutting Ave, but there isn't much
Okay.
to the left of Cutting Ave before you get into the wetland area. The cornfield is,
Down where it
I mean,
dips
the
down.
area I'm talking about, to me, sits behind the playground on the left-hand side, and then on one other side is kind of the little musical area. They have the little pavilion area, and then the far behind it is a ball field.
I don't think that was one of the.
But that's not land we were allowed to consider. You know,
Well, I guess the question is then, I mean, when they sit with some of these bigger areas that we have, is it an area that they were basically saying there's a specific piece of, I mean, because they have to own all that property. I mean, that whole area there has to be owned by the town. Am I wrong? Do we think differently?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I feel like respectfully, we were given parcels to consider. And if we try to consider parcels that aren't parcels that we should be considering, we're going to complicate this process. And I say that respectfully.
I get it.
So you were not looking at the right area, is basically what.
Well, yeah, but I would also, again, where's Pappas on here? Is it, that's in the other handout? I'd say make the motion to go ahead and do that. I just want to check one other thing with Pappas in terms of making Lemansky our number one.
sure. You know, I think if you and the other people on the cost estimation group are going to meet with the town engineer, flip him that question. Ask him why that's not a satisfactory area.
Was that a motion to consider Lemansky number one?
I was going to say,
How many
can we
motions state
can we
the
get to
motions? Lemansky have it number one?
We've got
You
a
second it?
second now.
All right, thank
All
you.
those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right,
It is a vote.
thank you so
Now,
much.
you want to add to that?
Do we need to?
Well, if you want to, I guess, consider the tot lot any
Well, I
further.
mean, does it have to be voted on to have a back? It doesn't.
No,
Okay.
no, it doesn't.
It doesn't have a backup, that's
Then
what
we
we
have a few.
mean.
No,
You can still go ahead.
Yeah, you,
Yep.
Because it doesn't mean we can't go back and revisit other sites if we find out Lemansky's
that's
not an
right.
option.
Absolutely,
It's a lot
absolutely,
of progress on the first one.
absolutely.
Yeah. I think we should put a lot of effort into the Lemansky. 'Cause
I agree.
I think it's a
either way,
great, it's a number spot.
For sure.
okay,
It's close to my house too.
very good. And you're photogenic. Telegram and Gazette.
It wasn't even my dog. They said that was my dog, Cash, and it's like my friend's dog. I'm like, you didn't even get a great picture of Deacon.
Okay, is there any other business?
So, before we meet again, before we discuss when we're going to meet again, I just wanted what the three of us are going to do as far as community outreach. We're going to work on fact sheets. What else?
Contact neighbors, get in touch
Are we
with
going to
skaters.
do that, or are we going to think about and sort of work on what we're going to say to them before we contact them?
I would think there would be a consensus of what
It's up
we're
to
going to
you.
share.
It's up to you. There's no instruction from this
Perhaps make a
committee
fact sheet.
on the three of you.
Okay.
You decide what you think is going to be the more effective way, and it may be different
Yes,
for
the three of you
different
can meet.
sites.
Yeah.
The three of you can absolutely meet because that doesn't represent a quorum.
But I think
Okay.
at least,
Represent all of us,
at
right.
least two of you, if you're going to do something public, if you're going to go to the police department and
Right.
speak to the chief and/or the patrolmen's association, I
Okay.
think there should be, enough so that it would have,
Sure.
so we wouldn't look like a one-person committee.
Okay. So yeah, we can meet separately and discuss. Making.
So your tasks will be just so I can document it.
Sure.
Preparation of the fact sheet.
Yes.
And preliminary community engagement plan.
Correct. Yeah.
And I mean, no one's going to stop you if you want to talk to your students.
Right. I was gonna say,
Right.
try and see if we can get a group together.
Yeah.
Again, I'm too old.
And you know, that other committee did a heck of a job on their fact sheet, on that presentation that
Yeah.
they made. You guys could borrow that, I think, or parts of that. I'm sure that Amy would be glad to share it with you.
So to follow up with Group 1, we represent Group 2. So the cost analysis piece, do we want to share with the group what the larger tasks will be?
I mean, the larger tasks are, follow up with folks that the chairman's outlined as resources. We've got templates that we can use to iterate from in terms of, building out a cost analysis. And it's just getting data, plugging it into a spreadsheet and seeing how it looks.
Yeah, I think one of the more difficult parts of your assignment is really to determine what you think should be in a dog park. Should there be tables? Should there be benches? Should these be elaborate? Is there going to be need for artificial shade? If so, how's that going to be provided? I think those are part of the cost analysis.
I would agree. But I think the first point is we get together with the town engineer to understand what's there, what the hard stuff's going to do. I mean, some of the stuff that you talked about, tables, some of the nicer amenities, to me, you only can get to those once you put in the must-haves, the hard costs, and then see where that is from a budget number, and then you can back in some of those other nice-to-haves, assuming they still fall underneath within the budget guidelines of the overall grant.
Existing parking is going to save this project a lot.
Could you said existing parking? Yes.
Existing parking, without even having to expand, is going to save.
Yep.
That might make us very desirable to the Stanton Foundation, I'm hoping.
I would think that's a significant benefit.
Yes.
An attribute, yes.
All right, is there other business to come before us before we determine our next meeting?
I guess dates, for the things that we just talked about, when we looking to have outreach done, when are we going to look to have the cost analysis done?
Wouldn't that go hand in hand with when we're meeting?
Yeah, so I think at this point, we don't know if it's next week or the week after for next meeting.
Right.
Perhaps we could designate next week to meeting with our individual small groups, small committees, whatever we call them, and then follow up. How long do we think a cost analysis would take, to be fair? That's the other thing. I feel like ours is a little...
To me, it's all predicated on the availability of the town resources.
But I would think that the numbers would be pretty easily accessible once a meeting takes place.
Some might be. It depends.
I'm being highly optimistic.
I don't think the cost analysis is going to be rocket science. There are thousands of them. So
That's fantastic.
It's just a matter of what are the inputs and getting the expertise around what some of those inputs per costs are. So he's going to come in and say, okay, this is the spot we have, great. In order to make that, meet the different, grant requirements that are aligned to spacing, that's what you can do. And then you can start taking the data points and we just start plugging them in and everything calculates nicely for you. So I think our big thing is, let's just figure out who's going to call. Is it just Coyle that you're saying we need to speak to?
Bill Coyle, or the town engineer, because they've got a two-person office in the town hall, and I don't know who would be in from time to time, whether it be the engineer or the assistant engineer, but there is an engineer and an assistant engineer.
Joanna Pekin. How do we say?
If you have trouble getting either of those, you can go through the town manager's office. Julie would arrange it for you.
So I think for us, we just, have a printout handy of the different, materials that the grant calls out, as possibilities that could be factored in, and we arrange a meeting. I don't know if all three of us have to be there. If we wanted all three of us to be there, that's great. We'll figure out a time. If two of us are fine, to represent going there, then that's great. It's just get him out there, getting his input, capturing it, and then coming back and then, working the numbers and maybe some sort of, options, right? Well, we've got $25,000 left, for instance, after you've kind of dealt with the hard ones that you must have. Now, maybe what you might want to do is you could take package A of 2 or 3 things, and maybe package B is one big thing, and we can vote on that as a group and put that as an option. So, one question, when the town meeting is it the first Monday or second Monday of every month?
Selectmen meet.
Yeah, something.
I believe they meet the 2nd and 4th and 5th if there is a 5th. But
So do we think it's possible? I mean, I'm just curious, the second week of April, we could potentially be putting this in front of,
I think it's possible. I think things would have to fall just right for us, but it's possible.
Because just referring back to the last meeting, that's what you had indicated in
Cool.
the roadmap that I did write down.
Do you think that we should have a meeting dedicated to telling the public this is what we are recommending to selectmen before we go to the selectmen?
I do. I think it's a differentiator with respect to what wasn't done the first time around. If no one shows up, no one shows up, and no one can say that they didn't have
That
an
we didn't
opportunity
have
to
an
go off and,
opportunity,
provide some input.
I absolutely agree with that, but I would just add the piece that we're in kind of an odd position, given that we ultimately have no decision-making authority.
No.
So, a listening forum, an opportunity to hear concerns and develop a reactive strategy, absolutely. But can we do anything?
You can't contract for anything?
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
No.
So,
Well, I mean, I
Can't spend a
don't
penny.
look at so much as we have to do something. I think it's just a forum to, answer questions and educate and promote awareness. And there's the potential that something may come up that we all just missed. And that we
right.
then say, okay, well, that's a great point. We don't have the answer for that. Well, let us go out and take that, and we'll make sure we have answers for that, at the time that it goes up for a vote at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
that's what I mean by reactive strategy, but just that, given that the Board of Selectmen would be the body voting on the work that we're doing. If I'm making sense to you.
I think, yeah.
Okay, great.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're not making any decisions for them. We're just facilitating information and
Right, here it is.
And they know even
What do you
sooner
want?
that's what's suggested to the Board of Selectmen. Yeah. Essentially.
Okay, next meeting. Do you want to meet next Wednesday? 3/1, that would put us back on our regular schedule, right? First and,
Well, online to that, so if we're saying we want to go, 410 is a target that we'd like to try to present to the Board of Selectmen, then I guess how soon do we think, and how long of a period do you think you need for the community outreach? Is it a 2-week period, in terms of set things up,
Yes.
set them out?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
yeah, and it will depend on what the reaction is, I think.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So if there was large-scale chaos as a result of meeting, it could get pushed. What is that?
I think he left his sofa.
Gracious.
Anyway,
So do we think having the public meeting on the week of the 3/20th is kind of make sense? I'm trying to reverse engineer to make sure we have enough time to do
To do what we do to do, right?
tentatively. I wouldn't put it in stone right now.
Right. But tentatively,
You know,
that's the schedule.
we could have another blizzard.
And that makes a difference. That's why our meeting last week was
Right.
canceled.
Right.
Because
they thought there was gonna be ice.
The secretary who had the minutes to post
Yeah.
was tied up with the making arrangements for town departments.
Is there any type of lead time that you have to give the Board of Selectmen in order to get on their agenda?
I don't know. See, I don't know what,
Then I would suggest that we,
they might very well say, when it's suggested to them that we meet in 2 weeks, they may say, no, we've got such and such that week.
You know, and I think it depends on how much they have to do.
Yeah,
It could be that they've got too much or that they've got
Yep.
plenty of time, so I think it just depends on how much they have to do.
and you're right, Sarah, and this is a busy time of year for them because they're getting ready for the annual meeting, they're getting ready for the budget.
But our initial meeting with the Board of Selectmen, I mean, it will be a process. I mean, our meeting with the Board of Selectmen would be pretty much our recommendation.
Yes.
And then there would be future meetings that would likely necessitate our appearance as a committee.
Really?
why do you think that? I mean, I was assuming that,
Well, I think when they hear back from the Grant Foundation, they'd want us there as well.
I'm sorry, say that again?
When they hear back from the foundation, they might want us there as well.
Okay, so that, but more or less, I guess, the way that I envision this, is, you know, is we get a date, we get on their calendar, we go in there with whatever, you know, materials that we are, they're gonna go ahead and present. The community knows, you know, it's published and whatever, you know, that's there. And then we provide our recommendations at that point. If there's people in the crowd, they can ask questions and, you know, do whatever. And then the board makes a decision. And at that point, I mean, call us when you need us, type of a thing. Is that what everyone else is on board with?
That's what I thought, but I didn't know.
That if things went well.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's the utility.
They don't always go.
The utopia, absolutely.
I mean, it could be that they say, we don't like this, go back and change this, meet us again in a month.
Exactly. I mean, it's their show.
Okay, all right. But pie in the sky,
Yeah.
Pie in the sky, we're going to be done.
either they say
Right.
yes and that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, as I heard the word utopia from this direction, let's go with that. Let's go with that.
I mean, I just,
Dogtopia.
if it meets the criteria and there's not a whole lot of opposition,
Then, right, I don't see, right.
where they can say that it's, you know, not a good thing. And then I would want to counter that, you know, unless you've got something major for us. I mean, every day that we wait, if there's not
another
something
day, no
major,
money.
it's another day that
Yeah.
we run the risk that we just, you know, we get nothing because we know that potential other communities are in the queue.
And I think that sense of urgency needs
To be communicated.
reiterated.
Right.
Because we share that collective sense of urgency, I believe.
Well, and they said they wanted it on a certain date. We're planning a month ahead, and we're really way ahead of where we had planned to be anyway. So,
I think they're eager to hear from us anyway.
Sure.
So,
and I'm eager to be done
So,
because everybody else has a dog park around us. So I'm eager to be, you know.
so if we were
Let's go.
We'll be out in Holman's dog park. All right, are we ready to adjourn? Are we ready to set the next meeting as 3-1?
can we, do you think the three of us can meet before next week?
Would you rather,
I don't know about yours.
Do you guys have time?
I have time.
I have time. I'll make time.
I should be able to, yeah.
Okay, all right.
even if you just have questions, maybe we'd use it almost as a workshop meeting, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And even if we can't make a meeting.
yeah, you don't have to have a final report or anything.
Well, I don't see how a quick meeting with the town engineer couldn't happen over the next week.
No, I should.
Could be. I mean, if we make the phone call, if you can do it, that's great. I'm with you.
Utopia.
Yeah, I can envision both groups getting partial information, not completing all you want, but getting part of it. And you can tell us how you're doing.
All right, sure. So yeah, I move that we meet on the 1st.
I second that.
All in favor?
I
Oh, so voted.
But we're having those basically like subcommittee workshop type stuff.
You're
Yes.
correct.
Right. And do we want to just so that it seems like if we kind of give ourselves a little bit more space in the future, we'll end up having higher participation. Does it make sense to keep the following week as kind of a get together to kind of review everything that we've come up with and try to kind of, dot I's, cross T's on it at that point?
So the first and then what day?
Because at that point, we're saying,
Right.
if we're trying to go the week of the 313, 320, you're going to have to, whatever outreach, you got to at least have a 2-week period of kind of nailing them with as much much chances to kind of find out as
So
much more type
you're
of thing.
proposing we meet again on the 8th?
I'm throwing it out there. I'm just trying, again, playing devil's advocate so that, ideally, I'd love to see us make sure that we're there. Outside of the selectmen saying, no, we don't have time for you, my preference would be, let's do it, if everybody's got the cycles to kind of make it happen, let's push to make that first meeting in April. So in order to do that, we got to make sure that we've got at least 2 weeks, worth of time to do the community outreach. Prior to that, we've got the cost analysis done. You've put together whatever, materials you want to use for the outreach. So all I'm saying, so if we're saying 3-1 is, workshop for the teams to come together and get those pieces fine-tuned. I mean, maybe everybody gets done in an hour. We could say then flip the switch and make it a joint meeting after that, or we just say it's the 15th or the 8th for the next meeting.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. Didn't Julie say that we could respectfully request the presence of town employees such as the town engineer at our meetings? I'm not trying to
I don't
antagonize
know.
anyone or book anyone.
I mean, like, we can invite them, but
No,
I think
that
they have to be able to be here,
I think we can.
You can, but,
nothing's stopping us from throwing out an invitation. I think, unless there's like really intricate pieces of information that need further discussion and further, understanding. I mean, I see the ideal point to bring a guy like Bill Coyle is there is at the time of the Board of Selectmen. So if somebody in the crowd gets a little bit, a little super technical about the land and,
Then he'll have the answer.
rainwater and
Yeah.
drainage and all
I
that
agree
sort of
with that.
stuff, then you can then defer him to give the answer because, unless all of us are experts in, environmental engineering, then we're going to be limited to what we can come back with.
Right.
I don't know if you
Yeah,
guys
you
know
can
that.
ask them. I don't think you can tell them to come to our meeting.
No.
My specific use was for the purposes that we have already discussed, as well as for a troubleshooting resource. But if it is the committee's consensus that it's not the best use of that resource, that's totally acceptable. It was.
I don't know, you can ask, I think you can ask them if they would be able to come and attend
But I
an
would-
evening meeting.
but
I think
I'm-
it's a mutual,
I'm hearing your opinion, but I'm curious what other people think. Would it be productive at this juncture?
I'm not clear on what that person would be doing and what's their role. Then I can tell you whether or not, I'm not sure everyone else can maybe have a better idea of what they think or don't think. And all I'm here is invite him to a meeting. I don't know what we would be doing.
Why would you
what's he
invite him to the
doing.
meeting?
Thank you, I understand the question. He is the town engineer. The task at hand is the cost analysis. You have said that your proposed roadmap, to use your verbiage, is once we do the hard numbers, that we could potentially have packages or features. So is that something that it would be productive to get input from the committee at this point? That's my thought
I mean,
process.
like right now?
No. Next week.
That's okay. I'm okay with that.
yeah, I have no idea how far along either group will be by next Wednesday.
So perhaps what might be preferable would be to invite at another meeting.
Yeah, if you feel that you reached a point where you'd like to have an expert from the town available to speak not only to the subcommittee but to the whole committee, yeah, I think you could do that, but you would have to arrange it at their convenience as well as
absolutely.
ours. Yeah. You know, I don't think it's a case of them working for us.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
a mutual
Yeah, you
professional respect thing.
And they all have their own lives too,
Oh,
but they
indeed.
also have other assignments. Probably there are
I'm sure many.
5 committees trying to use their expertise.
Definitely. I hear your point. I appreciate that.
No, I think if your group feels it would be nice to have an engineer or assistant engineer at a meeting to speak to you guys or to speak to all of us, that would be a fine thing to ask them.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay, has anybody got anything else? Okay, we will adjourn then.